Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to have you here gathered to have a chat. This is a long time coming. It just warms my heart to be in the presence of all of these beautiful women. And in this platform that we now have to deal with, but at least we can see each other. So thanks for joining me in this conversation that's been named Transforming the World Through Reflections. And this is an opportunity to continue exploring the way the pandemic and social injustice intersect. This time through the eyes of wonderful clinicians that really are here to support the community in this process of learning about this long-standing pain and moving forward with healing. I am honored to say that I've worked with all of these clinicians during our time together at Pacific Oaks College. All of them had the experience of having clinical training focused on African American family studies. So let me just introduce you to all of them. First, I will introduce Sheri Johnson, who is, please wave. Sheri Johnson is a clinician who works at United American Indian Involvement. And her work definitely is to support people of color in this process of healing. I now want to introduce you to Nigil Palmer. Nigil created Sacred Dragonfly natural self-care products and events. And one of the things that's important about this organization she created is that it supports women in developing better and more ways of self-care. Also, something that Nigil has shared is that her training in historical trauma absolutely informs this process. And for that, we're so thankful. Now I would like to introduce Loretta Brazile. Loretta, and we had a chance to collaborate sometime last month on another one of these conversations about the current state of affairs in the world. And so I'm thankful that you're here again. Loretta Brazile is a doctoral candidate at Pacifica Graduate Institute, and her focus is deaf psychology. Now I want to introduce Susan Lowe. Susan Lowe also works at United American Indian Involvement. She's a program coordinator at Child Abuse Treatment Program. And her focus definitely is trauma-informed and supports women in the process of healing. And now Carla Michelle. Thank you, Carla Michelle, for joining. And Carla Michelle also does a variety of things that are informed by clinical training. Now as an executive coach, Dr. Carla Michelle also supports people in the process of leadership development, better informed, with emotional intelligence behind it. So thank you for all of that work. And Dr. Adeela Whittaker. So glad that you're here. Adeela is working right now as an intimacy coach, and all of this clinical training informs her process of supporting relationships that are life-affirming. And she's created the Dr. D effect, and we'll hear more about this. I have to start by saying I am so proud to see the work that you are all doing. We communicate either via email or phone calls, or when I see on social media all the different things that you're doing, the programs you participate in, the programs you create. And it's heartwarming because it's important that in this healing process of the African diaspora, people that look like us are supporting this healing of generations. More of us, please. More of us, please. And I salute you and all the work that you're doing. Shall we just jump in? Let's do it. All right. I would like to throw a question out there for all of you. Although we've had private conversations about it, please share what your greatest concerns are about what's happening right now in this pandemic and all the social injustice that is now more visible.
I'll start.
Okay.
For me, I think that my greatest fear, frustration would be for us to get on board with all of the things that we're doing and the feel-good aspect of protesting, of standing up for our rights, of speaking our truth and trying to shift systems, and take all the anecdotal distractions that the system they're giving us. We asked for them to arrest the people that killed Breonna Taylor months ago, and they're doing everything but. They've painted streets, they've renamed things, they've changed the landscape of some TV shows, and that's nice, but we need you to give us justice. And so I don't want us to look up in another 60 years and think that we've done something, we've accomplished something and moved the country forward, only to find out that we haven't. That's my greatest fear and frustration.
Yeah. And as I'm listening to you, I can't help but think about all the ways in which social media has made it possible for this grievances to be heard more loudly, because they've been happening for so long. And, you know, this seems to be quite the turning point, hopefully. What are your thoughts about this, Adeela?
I think my greatest fear and concern with where everything is currently is, you know, just Black people or people of color in general making an agreement with this narrative that's being pushed out that our lives don't matter. Because it's beginning to be normalized that we're seeing, you know, the police and white people murdering us in the streets. And I think people are kind of becoming like numb to seeing it because it's happening so often, and there's not being justice, and there's no expectation that justice will ever be carried out because that, you know, that's been the norm. And I like, especially with the clients that I work with, it's like internalizing this thing that our lives really don't matter because we're seeing it, you know, play out in front of us. And that's my greatest fear, is that we internalize and make an agreement with that narrative, because that's not true. Our lives do matter. And we, like Nigel said, we need justice for Breonna Taylor and all of those who have fallen before her, you know, because our blood is precious and our lives mean something. We shouldn't have to walk around in fear that our loved ones won't come home, or that we won't be able to come home, or that we'll be shot down in our own homes. That's not okay.
Exactly. Thank you so much for saying that, because as it's happened year after year after year, you know, through generations, a people can internalize and normalize a certain level of pain that's unacceptable. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Sheri? Loretta.
Sheri, go ahead. Go ahead, Sheri. Okay. I was going to say, you can see the internalized racism even in politics when you have Black women or other people of color coming out and mentioning, the important that, not all Black people have to be Democrats and that type of thing, and they're absolutely right. However, to see it and to honor systems that have always put Black people and people of color at the bottom of the rung and insist on them being there and staying there. So my main concern through this process is that the shadow has produced itself, and it's evident. It shows through the increased numbers of crime, police brutality and crime that they've committed, right up to just last weekend. A young man was killed in Pasadena. He was shot in the back, and he did run away from the police, but he was still shot in the back. And then the assumption was that he had a gun. Someone claimed that there was a gun thrown away or whatever the case is. But the bottom line is that, as one person said, Black and brown people and other people of color are not getting the opportunity to be processed through a system. They are killed in the street, and then it's unvindicated. Just another dead person. And even with, if you can call it justice, that the police are then either fired or brought to the due process of being murderers, they still don't face the same type of time. They don't do the same, it doesn't affect them in the same way that it does the average citizen. And so we are looking at a time where the shadow is very present. It is showing us that this is the way police systems started in America, to monitor the behaviors of Black people in particular. And it's going to continue, and it's the shadow is producing itself, showing that everything that can be done to show that that it's going to stay is here, is present. We're seeing it every day in the news. And so fighting against that is going to continue to be an uphill battle. We can't expect that one person can just take the lead and carry it and expect it to change. We can talk about the way that a politician like Kamala Harris wasn't able to or didn't do some of the things that she should have, but we also have to look at her position through that process and being one only, and how much power does she really have? It may have been her decision, but was her decision influenced also by the people around her? We all have to take in consideration that, that this one single Black woman is not, or woman of color is not going to be able to undo what has been put in place since the first African stepped off those ships. So the intention was to keep you less than, and it's going to continue to show that. Exactly. That's my concern.
Yeah, it is something that we keep noticing more and more. The greater the protesting, the more we will see the oppressor upping the ante. So it's important that we remain united in this process of healing. Yeah.
So I think just to amplify what has already been said, I think one of my concerns is in terms of the intersection of race, in terms of racial injustice, and also with COVID, is where my concern is, especially for Black folks, is how can we do this different, that it is going to be all of us or none of us, right? In terms of the intersections of gender expression or ability or economics, all the different intersections. I apologize for all the intersections I'm leaving out, right? That this, what we are doing as Black folks is really nothing new, right? This has been with us, right? We've had so many examples of how to do this. And I'm always amazed by the brilliance and the creativity of Black folks, of how we continue to think of new ways to do it. Where my concern is we also need to be mindful of, are we continuing to engage in systems, even as Black folks, that are leaving folks out, right? That when I'm talking about Black Lives Matter, and when I say it, and when I post it, and when I tell other folks, I'm including everybody that identifies as Black, that is trans, that is non-gender conforming, that is houseless, that is conservative, that all these different intersections, right? That is where my concern is. My concern is leaving out all of us, because we can't really continue to operate in, well, when we're talking about Black, we're actually just talking about Black men. Or when we're talking about Black men, we're actually just talking about cis, heterosexual Black men. Right. Oh yeah, and then you got Black women, yeah, and Black children, and no, it's all of us. It's all of us or none of us.
Yes.
I'll just leave it at that. That's where my concern is, that we push past these mistruths, and we really try to continue to step into our brilliance and our creativity and our humanity to include all of us.
So this healing calls for honoring the multi-layers of intersectionality. You know, the community is diverse. All of it deserves honoring. Yes. Yes.
So what's up for me around this? And I agree with everything that's been said. But I find I'm in many different circles for our profession. And I find that our allies, there aren't enough African-American or people of color therapists for the amount of work that there is to do. There just aren't enough. And I say people of color, I work with Natives, I work with Latinx. So the reality is our allies have a place in this healing. And I've had many allies come to me initially when the racial unrest happened for me to teach them. And I would let them know, after I had to deal with my own feelings around that, no, I'm not going to. It's not my place to educate you on anti-racist. What does that mean? What is it? It's not my place to do that. But what I did was provide resources. And then I've kind of checked in on them. So how's it going? What's up for you? And some are doing the work and some aren't. And I think for me, it's also who's sincere about this. This is not just a fad or a phase. Black Lives Matter for the photo op, which is happening. And then 6 months from now, a year from now, it doesn't matter. I want to know who are our allies that are really concerned about implicit bias and how it shows up in mental health, how it shows up in the medical field, how it shows up in maternal mortality and Black women dying 5 and 6 times more than white women when we're having babies in 2020, which to me never makes sense. And so I think I'm often finding myself in spaces where I'm challenging them. Show me how sincere you really are about this dynamic. A lot of them, the riots were scary. They were scary to a lot of my clients because my clients live in those areas. And I say riots in the beginning, then we went to peaceful protests. But even in that, even the languaging around that, even, well, what, don't all lives matter? Absolutely. So I need you to explain to me why specifically Black Lives Matter. So that's what I've been doing. Like in my work, I've been actually challenging our allies, our fellow therapists and psychologists to do that.
As I'm listening to you, Susan, I'm reminded of the many conversations about how difficult it has been being a person of color to be approached by people who state themselves to be allies, wanting to engage us in this teaching moment, you know, when our energy is otherwise drained. This is hard. This is really hard. And hopefully, like you said, this is not a temporary thing. That's just a result of this upheaval. That the allyship is sincere. We need that. We need that. Carla, what are your thoughts about this?
Hey, okay, so my concern is that I remain an ally to my children's age group because they were out there protesting, and I've never protested. I went out there at that time, but to remain an ally for them and to make sure that that age bracket, to make sure the millennials, to make sure that they see things a little different than I do in the sense of racism or what is happening in the world. Some of them are just, they haven't experienced it to the level that maybe I have growing up. And to be that ally for them is my concern. And also, I want to also make sure that in my alliance that I'm celebrating the work that they're doing, because they are stepping out like never before. And that is my goal, to make sure that I put before them the insight and revelation of just how much they're doing, and just how 30 years, well, more now, 50 years ago, in the 60s, when the people of this age group went around and protested and peacefully and marched and sat in places and different things to make a change, that, they're onto something, and to just really remain their ally. I have to say, in the business world, I have seen a lot of switching and pivoting in careers because of the companies not taking a stand when Black Lives Matter still is important, but when it was really the thing that a company make a statement, and when they've seen their company not make a statement, they've pivoted out, or they've shifted what either they've gone in and made a difference and created some type of organization to where they were able to impact their company, or they've moved out and started their own thing and know how they want to treat their clients or their customers. So I'm seeing a lot. I just want to remain a supportive act in that. But definitely that is a concern, that we lose the support, that those who are, not saying I'm not making any change, but those who are really at a different place in their lives, and that this is their future on the line.
Yeah. Wow. What's helping you all stay present with so much going on? What's helping you?
My mic's still up, so I'm going to say I don't really spend a lot of time on the news. I am aware of what's going on, but how much I ingest is how I have to practice the self-care. It is overwhelming. You've got the pandemic, you've got social injustice, you have things that we're waiting to happen and they're not happening. We're not being heard on a lot of things. So you get mad or you go mad, one of them. So I'm trying to balance it out, between getting mad and going mad. So that's it.
That needs to be a t-shirt.
Yeah, I have also been filtering how much news and media I consume, just for like my own personal sanity. So like for my own personal journey, I had my daughter like 3 months before COVID shut everything down. So I was like home with her because she couldn't go outside. And then by the time she was able to like go out and embrace the world, we had to shut everything down. So we were just in the house, and I was getting like a lot of cabin fever because I needed to like see something else and have like an adult conversation. So I've just been trying to practice like, not consuming every media outlet that comes out, just filtering what I allow into my emotional mental space, and then trying to find space and time for myself to like go outside, within a safe distance, and go for a walk. And also like I picked up reading again, which I hated reading after going to grad school, but I found my love for reading again. So I tried to go back to doing that to help rejuvenate me during this time.
Yeah. Oh, wow. What an experience. It's so many adjustments. So many adjustments.
I would say for me, staying in therapy to help me with my sanity balance. And, you know, taking everything in, but not allowing it to take over. And I think we can get overwhelmed with so much because each day you can start 5 o'clock in the morning and go the entire day with all of the different things that are coming out and still not have read everything or ingested everything, and more is coming.
Right.
And instead, like Carla said, you know, just limiting, and Adeela too, limiting what I'm taking in, take it in small doses. I think we all still need to be aware because this is affecting people on a daily basis and people that we encounter. I'm not doing therapy with anyone right now, and I start my internship in September or next month, middle of next month. But right now, I'm not doing therapy with anyone. I am working on my dissertation. I said staying in therapy and really retracting from so much of the social media from that perspective, and trying just more to engage with people on more of the love and the personal level than anything. So I think that that's important, to find your balance and know what you can take, and recognize when you're overwhelmed, because it's overwhelmed. You can read one article and be shot down for the day. So, so recognizing what you do. So
yeah. Wow. To recognize that we're overwhelmed. And the thing is, you know, sometimes you can't, if you're flooded, you can't tell just how overwhelmed you are. And for people who don't have a practice of pausing, you know, like we do, this experience is so much more intense in other ways. You know, it's such a wide range of experiences of overwhelm. And, you know, even when you have good self-care practices, that can be hijacked.
Absolutely.
It can be so quickly hijacked, you know. What else is helping?
I know for me, I'm glad Loretta said therapy, because as soon as COVID hit, I called my therapist and I said, I need eyes on me, because I was watching other people decompensate very quickly. So that's been helpful. But the other thing I've been doing is being more intentional with relationships in my life. I'm originally from the East Coast, so we do a family Zoom every other week so that we can all check in. My family's all over the country. And I'm finding that's been really helpful, not just for me, but even for some of the ones that have been isolated. I have a lot of senior relatives. They haven't gone out. They're still not going out. They have food delivered to them. I mean, and my family's in the New York area where it hit first. And so they very serious about it. So that's been helpful. And then I saw how good that was. I started doing some friend check-ins. So last night we had a Friday night check-in. I want to say a sipping, but I was sipping water. So, and I think using these kind of platforms can help us stay connected. And of course, we've had the Zoom parties, and you know, because life is still happening in this mode. Graduations, I saw Carla's daughter graduating, and you know, your son graduated. It was that kind of stuff. So life is still happening. So how can we normalize it to the best of our ability in this environment? So I've been definitely more intentional about checking in on my loved ones, and let's connect. Let's connect.
Let's connect. Just like being here right now is really, my heart is full, because we have one-on-ones, and yet to see you as a group, I'm thankful for this moment. It definitely is adding to what keeps me standing. Yeah, we need to have eyeballs on each other, especially now. You know, we're grieving so many things and we can't even grieve in person. You know, how about you, Sheri, what's helping you?
Sure. So, to be honest with you, trying to just stay vigilant about, daily meditation, like kind of start my day with meditation or prayer, trying to be better about daily exercise, physical movement, because I live alone and I'm really trying to be mindful about my engagement in the world. So, so I feel safe doing things that make me feel safe and also feel like healthy. So meditation, exercise, this is kind of the first things I do in the morning and come back inside the house where I feel safe, right? My daily, my weekly grocery run, I just did that this morning, right? And also
the groceries would be an outing.
Yeah, it's I do like a little checklist, okay, what do I need? I do a strategic, okay, this, be back by this certain time. I really have to kind of remind myself of these things, like we're still in it, like this isn't, yeah. So also just doing connecting with family. I have 2 elder parents that I've been trying to do, Google Meet with. They're not having it. They just want to hear my voice and I have to make peace with that. I'm like, okay, all right. So, also with friends, like I just came from a 1-year-old's birthday party and that was amazing, so that was really dope just to have a virtual birthday party. I was like, I've never been to I couldn't remember last time I went to a baby's birthday party, but I was on there. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've done in a long time. So it was just great to be able to engage, seeing people laugh and smile and just celebrate life. Just like as we're saying, like life still is going on in the midst of, right? A lot of folks transitioning, a lot of folks, no longer being with us in the physical sense. So it's amazing just to be able to be a part of that. And just in terms of being informed, I'm really trying to keep the balance of maybe just listening to Democracy Now! In the morning and, and then trying to tiptoe out of, news throughout the day. Because we're all more likely a lot of input in throughout the day. We don't need that news feed in. Like that's too much.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that even as a reminder for myself, that's a daily reminder. So that's what's been helping me.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to all of the above. Staying connected however possible, because this is rough. For me, especially earlier on in the quarantine, because, all the protests plus what was happening in therapy sessions, as prepared as we are to be in the presence of someone's pain, in this pandemic experience, it was just very different to be in therapy sessions with someone that's going through a similar pain. Nigel, what's been working for you?
For me, initially it was distraction because my 2 children, they were at home. So I got the opportunity to troubleshoot things that I wasn't able to troubleshoot before when they were at school. And the success of that helps the morale of the whole house because the kids were getting better at school. They were more focused. They were more relaxed because they didn't have the transitions from home to school and back again. We could just do school at our own time. We could make our own schedules. And so that helped out a lot initially. But during the time where school was over, just field trips to the grocery store, field trips around the corner, just walking, physical activity. Initially, Sheri would suggest every once in a while we do Zoom calls, just check-ins with a couple of us that, keep up with each other a lot. I was on a roll with my business doing events. I do monthly new moon events. So, and I'd like to do them in person. I am not a technology person. So initially I just stopped. I did my first new moon. I resumed this month, but February was my last new moon that was in person, and I really want to keep that in person because we are so technical. Our society is so technical. I felt like that was a thing to have people come to my house, do, you know, break bread together. That was the new normal that I was trying to institute, but then here comes COVID that, you know, changed that. So now I have to challenge myself to do this digital stuff, to do this digital reaching out, which is completely different for me. So just the preparation for doing that is what's distracting me now. So distraction is still very high on what's helping me keep it together. I'm still in therapy, and I keep my children in therapy and that type of thing, but distraction. Positive distraction, but distraction.
The life affirming kind.
Yes.
You know, and as you were talking about how different it is to, you know, have your new moon gatherings in person versus, you know, with this technology, it made me think of something I want to consult with all of you about. What's it like for you to do this work that you're passionate about, to do it now, you know, with these platforms? How has it transformed the way you move in your work life, and what it feels for you, how it feels like for you to do it in this way now?
Oh God, for me, I work with everybody. Like I work with children and adults. And so for some of my clients, it works. They don't have to come to the office. As long as they can find a space for themselves. I have clients that have 5 and 6 children, and there's nobody to care for their children. So they put on a movie, they're in the house with their children, and it works. But doing play therapy in this modality, oh my goodness. And right now I have one little kid client, and he's 4. And I almost have to exercise to get ready for the session, because to keep a 4-year-old in front of a 2-dimensional screen requires a lot of energy, requires me find all kinds of little videos. And then of course, always with children, you have to be flexible, because he may not want to hear the story that I want to read.
Right.
He wants to play colored Power Rangers. So that's what we're doing. And so that part is, I find challenging. Even with, we've done a incredible job of giving our staff training on play therapy and how to work, doing assessments in this Zoom mode, doing intakes in this Zoom mode, doing outcome measures in this Zoom mode. You know, that stuff is pretty intense stuff when you're asking people about their historical trauma and their traumas, and to do it in this modality for the first time you're seeing somebody and you're just a face on a television, on a screen.
On a screen.
So it is definitely challenging. I see Sheri waving her head, so I know she knows the pain.
Say it, Sheri, say it. I mean, if it's hard to be in session with someone that you've had sessions with in person, to switch to on screen and, you know, playing with these buttons, let me pin so I can really look at you, and all these different things. How much harder it is to have therapy sessions for the first time that we've never met before. Woo!
That's very, very true. Like, you know, I'm laughing because I can relate, especially with the kid clients. Like, I have kid clients, like I had a 9-year-old, and she was this, one time we had to meet on the phone, and she lasted about maybe 15 minutes, and all I heard was like the phone shuffle. And her mom was like, I think she's done. I was like, yeah, she's done. So, you know, it's really been, if anything, it's been a challenge, but then I'm also trying to think, because you know what, Sheri, we're going to be doing this for an undisclosed amount of time. You can look at this 2 ways, right? You can look at this as a challenge and this, it sucks, or you can think of it like, how can you grow, right? So it's been a mixture of both. I'm not going to say like it's all light love over here. It's been a mixture of both. You know, I've really been thinking about like, okay, how can I engage like kiddo clients in a different way? How can I engage clients that I've never met before, and this is the first time you're seeing me, right? You know, like, how can we do this in a way? And one thing I've been really trying to be mindful of what COVID has allowed for us, because sometimes it's really difficult to remind myself of that, like what has this allowed, right? This is allowed, at least for me as a therapist, allowed as a way to be able to learn more about myself as a person, also as a therapist. How can I really affirm and engage my clients who are all very different, hopefully in their space where they feel hopefully safest, right? And what I've seen thus far is when you remind people, listen, I know you got a kiddo in the background. It's okay. We're right here, right? If you need to attend to them, do that. It's fine. We were doing that anyway when we were meeting at your house, right? Like it hasn't changed, right? Also, what that has allowed for folks to feel safer, to be able to have better conversations about historical trauma, right? Or generational trauma, or spirituality. Is, it's been amazing. I really am just grateful of all the conversations I've had with different folks that we never really talked about when I was meeting with them in person. And I don't know if it's just being safer and feeling safer in their space, their home, that's allowed for that. But I am appreciative of working from home or being a distance, social distancing or physical distancing, that's allowed for that. So it's been exciting. It's been a challenge, but exciting.
As I'm listening, and thank you for saying that word challenge, because for many people it's been a creative challenge. I definitely see it that way. But even so, it has its moments. It really has its moments when, gosh, I just would love for it to be in person. But the creative challenge is on, not only for therapy, but also in class. That's been interesting. It's been really interesting, but it's a process. And again, we try to adjust. I was reading about how for some people to have sessions this way allows for certain interventions to be explored in real time. But then at the same time, that's not true for every kind of session. Or as you were saying, Susan, and you too, Sheri, if you're working with a child, it seems like the overarching thing here is how flexible can we be? More thoughts on how you're dealing with this.
I had the opportunity for 4 years. I might go back this fall. School's already started, but working with a contract for a company that did counseling for kids who were already homeschooled. So I have like 4 years of doing this online. We never did it in person. It was virtual. So one of the things is that creativity. I mean, I bring up YouTube videos to help them learn. I'm sure we've all tried this, or, different websites that we can use to help them, grade themselves on certain things and interaction and social skills. Most of the kids are on the spectrum, and just socializing and ideas of how to interact with each other. So you do have to be, I think you work harder virtually than you do in person, because you got a screen going, and then when they're done, Sheri, they're done, right? And it's like they take off, or you end up counseling the parent, which is not your client, and it's just becomes like out of so you do have to learn how to. But I'm very thankful for going virtual prior to help me, because then with my clients that I do for my business, it was able to just kind of, this works. And so if this is how it is forever, I think we got it, because we have so many tools and resources to use now. And why have an office? That's why I have an office, but it's like, this is great, but it is work, and it is something that you do have to be creative, and I think it's, like I said, more energy is taken, and I'm definitely more worn out. When I did it, I couldn't wait for summer session. I'm spent. I don't know if it's the screen plus the the client, but
Mhm.
I'm spent.
I don't know about you, but I remember, especially earlier in the quarantine, I physically felt more tired after sessions than
Yeah.
before. And so it really called for doing a lot of releasing work more frequently in the course of the day. Oh my gosh, it was depleting. And because we're also going through our own pain and grief about this madness going on, not only here, but worldwide. You know, all this injustice has been going on for generations. It's just that now it's more visible because the pandemic really put a lens on it, and we're home, so we have to see it, you know. But yeah, it has been draining in some new ways, But who knows how much longer we're gonna have to be in this kind of session work or any kind of work, telework, for those who still have telework. You know, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. You know, one of the things that's come up, not only for us therapists, is the idea that to switch to a virtual mode is not necessarily accessible to everyone, because you know the whole discussion about social injustice includes unequally distributed resources. So that applies to us in our clinical work. Not everybody that we used to meet with in person has access to meeting us virtually. I've been so worried about people who either no longer have access to support or never had it and are now trapped because they can't call it safe at home with perpetrators, with abusive people. That is really difficult to grapple with. How have you navigated this situation?
Well, I thought Sheri was going to jump in.
Mhm.
That has been interesting.
Mhm.
So safety planning with some of my clients has been interesting because safety planning may not include going to a shelter, a DV shelter, a domestic violence shelter. Safety planning, how can I keep you as safe as I can in your home?
Mhm.
Um, always providing resources, but it is a bit of a challenge. Even though we are doing everything through telehealth,
Yeah.
I'm in a community mental health program, so we have created online workshops to keep families engaged, and that's twofold. It's so that they have activities that they can do together, and Sheri can talk more about it because Sheri hosts some of those events. Um, but it also helps us to get eyes on the children and the mom.
Mhm.
And sometimes when there's food insecurity or there's some other things, we partnered with other community organizations. So even though I'm a therapist and I could ask a care coordinator or a case manager to drop something off, I will take it myself. So that for 5 minutes, I can put eyes on my client, the family, the other children in the household, just because I want to make sure everybody's safe.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, yeah, those are some of the ways. But it's definitely been challenging. It's hard. But I think Sheri could probably speak to some of that too.
Jump in, Jerry.
Thank you, Susan. No, I think it's to echo that. Yeah, like the activities, thankfully, our agency had in place before COVID has been tremendous in terms of still maintaining community. Because as we all know, like, you know, a lot of things thrive in isolation. So having at least, you know, one time, couple times a week that you can go to beading, or you go to art workshop, or parent cafe, where you can just be like, oh, these kids, they won't listen, right? Or Mindful Monday, where we just, you know, talk about like, what is it like to make an affirmation? That's what we're doing this Monday, right? And how that can help start your day. About physical exercise and how that can reduce, you know, stress, you know, depression, all the things we kind of, the benefits of physical exercise or physical movement. And I think Susan is right, is really thinking about like how we can still have those conversations with folks where there might be some real dangers in their home, right? If that is safety planning, if that's like, hey, you know, didn't you have a cousin you felt like safe going to, like if you needed to, right? Having those conversations about just like remembering who is in your support system and you feel safe enough to still go to. And even thinking about for our folks that don't have the best internet access, or they're sharing a tablet or a phone with their with their child, like there's only a few devices in the home, and how do you make that work? You know, because also thinking about like for a lot of folks, I never went to their home for a variety of reasons, right? We met at different places. If it was like a library, Starbucks, or different places, those places really aren't an option right now, right? So how do we continue to make this work? So it's really just, if anything, it's really having even very intentional conversations with clients to see what safety and what engagement looks like for them. Because that might look different from family to family to family, or client to client to client, or family to family to family. So it's really, if anything, really just really driving home the importance of having that conversation with our clients to help affirm them and also empower them to say like, this is actually what I need, or this is what actually is happening.
Supporting empowerment. Yeah. Ooh.
I think it's been interesting in like being able to create this like safe space for sharing virtually. I don't work with children. Most of my clients are adults. Well, all of my clients are adults, but just creating a virtual safe space for them to feel, empowered to express emotional vulnerability. That I think has been the biggest challenge with the whole like with meeting people on Zoom, because if you want to cry, the initial response is to be able to hold someone with your words, but then to have this additional layer of space that's there because of the Zoom, it makes it a little bit difficult, because I know like a lot of my clients, if they'll cry, they'll take themselves off of the video so that I can't see, and if I can't hear you cry and I can't see you, I don't know how to respond. Versus if you were in front of me and you were crying, I would know, I would be able to have that information. But if I can't see it and I can't hear it, that leaves me in the dark. And it also, it rips the rapport that we have, and it makes it difficult for us to get past that expression. So I think that's been a difficult thing, is to empower the clients to feel safe enough to have those vulnerable expressions in that space, because sometimes they don't want to express that around their kids or around their partner. And so it's like, going to your coaching or going to see your therapist was your safe haven, because that was a space where you can express that. But if you don't feel comfortable expressing it at home and you're not expressing it over Zoom, then where is your outlet?
Yeah. Oh, so vulnerability is really compromised by having this screen. Again, as social beings, we need this touch.
I can imagine that holding yourself in an empathic way to feel the emotions or the connection with people over Zoom or over the internet, and trying to have that or to use that as your foundation of normalcy. I haven't had the experience yet, other than I'm sure this is how my own therapist feels about me, but but to connect with someone without having that feeling sense, it must be very difficult. I'm going to face that myself coming up in September. I'm sure we're not going to be at a point where we're doing face-to-face. That's just wishful thinking for the next few years, I'm thinking. But anyway, the reality is I can just imagine that it would be difficult, because I've been on conversations over the phone when I was doing therapy, and a client will call, and I'm holding my breath because of what they're saying.
Mm.
And then I use that and say, because you use your countertransference, right? So I'm using that and I say, I can imagine that being very difficult for you or very hard, because if I'm holding my breath while you're explaining it to me, how often can you breathe in that circumstance, under those circumstances? You know, or are you breathing, or what are you doing? Because the reflection is coming through me and I'm feeling it in such a way. So I'm not sure, but I'm thinking that's why when you talk about being so tired, in connection with sitting in session with people over the internet and looking at them and sometimes seeing them, or if they tune out like Adeela was talking about, that has to leave you drained, because you're holding not just the space as the containers that we are, but you're also holding their emotions that are connecting through your own body.
Yes.
So that's why it's so important for us to do our own self-care.
Absolutely.
And to make sure that we are meditating or doing some type of breath work or whatever it is that helps us to push that out, exercise, walk, whatever. But we need to have other piece, because if you're not allowing yourself to empty the container and you're holding it for however many people that you're seeing, it will affect you.
Yeah.
So I'm listening to all of you. I'm not doing it right now, but I can feel your energy and know that it's difficult. So I am assuming, basically you guys are preparing me for what I'm going to face at this level, right? So I appreciate it. I appreciate knowing that and holding that in my own thought.
That is so true, Loretta. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Carla. Go ahead.
I was going to say that that's so good, because you forget about that downtime. I think you said it as well, Melissa, because I've had virtual now. I've had a young Black man, 17, commit suicide after, you know, he was one of my clients, and he actually stopped the service and then committed suicide. So those are the things, and it still gets to me. And this is probably 2 years now. And it's true. If you do not release that, as apparently I still haven't, it is real, you know. I mean, how do you deal with this? How do you keep them safe? I can't touch, you know, I can't be there. You know, I've had to report on CPS, and you know, and it's like it's on other kids, you know, and because of what's happening in the home, but you're not there. So you feel so responsible. Even though you've come in at the tail end of what's all going on in their lives, you feel so responsible. So it is very key that we do have to do that work and you know, release that.
As I'm listening to you, you know, that too is a layer of the grief that us clinicians have been experiencing in this pandemic. You know, we're definitely, gosh, we take in so much, and we are impacted by the suffering of our clients. You know, the day we stop being impacted, we need to rethink if we should continue being clinicians, you know, but taking care of ourselves, you know. Loretta, thank you so much for what you shared about being more present with our bodies, you know. So much of what we do, especially early in therapy, is support someone in developing a sense of safety within their body so that they can feel safe in the presence of us to say anything, to share anything. And so maybe because we are in this virtual situation, we have to really tune in more deeply into what's happening in our bodies while we are interacting with our clients. Not that we wouldn't have done it in person, but Loretta, what you just said really is giving me a lot to reflect on. We probably need to look more deeply into our own body work, not only during session, definitely after session, but there's a special, what's the word I'm looking for? An additional reason to do it in these kinds of sessions, because something is not the same. There's a screen or it's a phone, you know. Wow. Adeela, you mentioned something about rapport, and I hooked onto it because one of the beautiful things about Pacific Oaks College having these specializations that are all about uplifting the value of cultural context when we're in a healing relationship is that, you know, our people have for a long time and with good reason not trusted clinical work, clinical support. So the existence of you, the existence of these training programs is key so that we can keep building bridges with our communities so that more and more trust, more rapport is developed so that our clinical work could be yet another way of providing healing, because it's not the only, but another way, you know. So now that we're virtual, how do you go about this bridge building process that we were trying to do before the virtual world we're living in?
So can I interject a little bit? Because for me, this is where my intersection is. I have found when I started to do the new moons, it grew out of a birthday party. It grew out of my 40th birthday party. But I realized that everybody that was at my 40th birthday party was in the healing profession. They were either therapists or social workers or doctors, things like that. And so I feel like that was when I realized that the people who are in the healing professions need an outlet for themselves. They need the self-care. They need to create a ritual for themselves. And that's why the new moons have grown the way that they have. And so for me, I'm servicing you. I'm servicing you guys are my main clientele. And so to find ways to help clinicians find that time for self-care or create a ritual for self-care or just designate a space for self-care, that is what I felt like, oh, I figured this out. And then the pandemic hit. So now I need to find different ways to help you guys. And for me, I would definitely need some feedback as to how can I better provide for you? How can I better make a space for you to come and do the work to free yourself and heal yourself so that you can be available for your clients. So if there's any suggestions around that as well, I didn't want to get too far past it before I, brought it back and say, yes, you guys are seeking ways, and you should, to de-stress, to clear your mind and to be better effective. So help me help you be better effective, because that is my main clientele is our therapists and social workers.
I think along with that, just to echo what Nigel, Susan, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say thank you, because I've been to her new moons and they're wonderful, and you're right, it is a healing space.
Yes.
And we can revisit what that could look like. And honestly, if we do social reasonable distancing, I'm fine with getting in person with people. That's just me personally. I know everybody is not at that comfort level, but I know for me personally.
Thank you, Susan, for giving that information.
Yeah, I would add that definitely I thank you for wanting to stretch the ways in which you support the wellness of the healers. And I enjoy very much the things you share on social media because it inspires reflection, and that is part of healing.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
I think to amplify that, I think bringing it back to the creativity and the diversity of, especially for Black folks, I jokingly say, like, I can really only speak for Black folks because I've been Black my whole life. Like, that's all I know, right? That's all I know. So, and I know that I don't know everyone's Black experience, right? So that being said, there are going to be folks that might feel safe enough to go to a therapist, right? And there might be some Black folks that are just like, I've been harmed, by therapists, by the state, by social workers. I don't want anything to do with it. Right. But I'll go to a new moon. I'll do that. Okay, I might go to a coach. I'll do that. I might do this or that. And I from all anything that's healthy and helpful, especially for Black folks, to feel safe and seen and uplifted, I'm here for it, right? So however that is done. So I, just seeing, even within this space, right now, and this is not even all of us, how we're all doing it, right? Dealing with, your sexual wellness, right? That is tremendous work that needs to be done, especially for Black folks, right? With New Moon, right? Especially being kind of if you identify as, woman-centered space, that's powerful work, right? In the clinical space, yes, absolutely, right? There's not one way of doing this, and I love seeing all of us, like from our cohort, and also as our worlds are expanding, how we're all doing it is amazing to see, and all of it, hopefully, and also I love how we're all thinking about how else can I do this, right? How else can I be of service? How else can I expand this? And I hopefully want to be in concert with that as well, with either the workshops that I've done with either myself or in concert or with Ebony, other folks. It excites me to see how I can create space, especially for Black folks, especially for Black women or Black femmes. I'm excited to see it, and I'm excited to see how that is. How that can continue to grow even after COVID, because I tell my clients, I tell my family, I tell my friends, like, I have no choice to believe. I have to believe in the after, right? There is going to be an after to this, right? So how can we take the momentum of where we are now and translate that to the after? So I'm excited.
To piggyback on what you just said, this could be maybe one amazing opportunity for all of us in the helping professions to up our game, so to speak, in terms of building bridges, create new ways to build bridges with our community so that we can increase the trust in a variety of ways of healing. Our creativity right now is through the roof, out of necessity, and because we're staying in touch, I really feel that this can only expand. It can only expand. It's very heartening to see how several of you have partnered to present workshops and series, and it's so exciting. And the community sees this. And that's another way of letting people know, hey, somebody that looks like me is doing some healing work. I probably need some healing. Let me find out about my history in a new way. This is powerful. And it is the reason why I wanted us to get together, because you're doing powerful work. And I'm so inspired and proud.
Thank you, Professor Shepherd. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right. That's what I was saying. Thank you.
Together. I haven't seen these ladies in a while, and I appreciate it. And then thank you for the work that you're doing, because
Yeah.
people need to know we exist. You know,
Absolutely.
Black Girl Magic, we are out in the world. We went to school, we're doing this, we exist. We're not unicorns. I mean, we are unicorns, but we're here to help. We're here to serve.
To help. We're
Yeah.
here to help. I mean, it's important that people that look like us know that there's a large community of us that are dedicated to learning about our history. We're dedicated to teaching about our history and being an emotional support, to each other, because learning about it is painful. Learning about it is painful. Understanding our pain more deeply, it calls for support. So we need our community to know that we are here for this mutual support. Healing is not just reading more books about our history. There's so much more. And we're here for each other and for our community. I want to thank you all for being here today. And let's stay in touch. Thank you for all of your beautiful work. And hopefully on the other side of COVID, we can have a food moment in person.
Yes.
Yes.
Take care.
Yes.
Be well. Be well.
Good to see
Thank
everybody.
you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Stay safe, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Take care.
Yes.
Thank you.